Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Crafting and Yapping. It's been a while, and I'm very thankful that you guys have returned to watch this video. All the people that haven't, screw them, we didn't need them anyways. So, there are two goals for this video. One of them is to start villager trading, and the other one is to create an iron farm. As you can see right now, I'm moving the string by water stream to go into the villager trading hall. The reason we're using water streams instead of hoppers is because the items flow too fast for hoppers to pick them all up. By using water streams, we can directly get the string to where we want it to be right away. Now, we're going to start talking about the main topic of today's video, forgiveness. I asked my friends their thoughts on forgiveness, and here are a few of the things that they had to say.
What I think about forgiveness is that it's really good to be forgiving, but you can't be forgiving all the time or else people will take advantage of you.
I sure hope these villagers are forgiving because I've trapped them here against their will, and I am indeed taking advantage of them. Another friend had this to say about forgiveness.
I think that in general, with forgiveness, what's most important isn't to forgive when you think that they deserve it. It's to forgive because that will provide you serenity and peace, and it will allow you and allow the other person to mentally push past that barrier which was preventing you both emotionally from healing.
He then went on to describe forgiveness as
It is a tool to heal. It is a tool to produce love into the atmosphere. I think unconditional love is the most powerful emotion you can produce, to love somebody regardless of what they do, to love somebody past their flaws. And forgiveness is like an addition, a byproduct of unconditional love.
So there's a lot to unpack here. First, I'm going to talk about forgiveness as a healing tool for oneself. I completely agree that this is what forgiveness is about. It's not so much about the other person, it's about you. What forgiveness means is letting go of the hurt that another person has caused you. It's not about whether the person that hurt you was in the wrong. It's not about if they've changed as a person. It's just about you and your own healing process. At least that's my opinion. I think that too many people are unwilling to forgive because they don't feel that the other person is deserving of forgiveness. When I asked my friend Eddie what he thought of forgiveness, he said that you don't have to forgive people. And that's true, you don't have to. But the thing is, it hurts no one except for yourself. Holding on to a grudge or holding on to the pain that someone has caused you, why would you willingly do that? Well, like my friend mentioned earlier, you don't want to get taken advantage of, and you want to protect yourself from future harm. This is where I draw a distinction between the two kinds of forgiveness. You have emotional forgiveness, and then you have practical forgiveness. Emotional forgiveness is letting go of the pain and forgiving them internally. This is the self-focused process that I was describing earlier. Practical forgiveness is the flip side. It's how you treat this person who has hurted you. Bringing attention to the gameplay, I just gathered wood and crafted beds for the iron farm. This design is simple and can be set up in just a couple minutes. I'll provide a link to it in the description. First, we need to find a suitable location. Here is pretty good. While I dig this out, we'll get back to talking about forgiveness. When people describe someone as being worthy of forgiveness, they're talking about the practical kind of forgiveness. Someone is only worthy of forgiveness if they've changed their behavior, because then you're safe around that person again. When trust is broken, it needs to be rebuilt slowly, and practical forgiveness is the method by which this occurs. That said, if someone hurts you or breaks your trust, you can't expect them to change all on their own. They might not even realize that they've hurt you. As such, it's important to communicate your feelings in a clear and direct way, especially if you value the relationship with this person. One thing I've learned about forgiveness, though, is that if you repeatedly express your boundaries and someone says that they're sorry but continues to break them, you should listen to their actions and not their words. Now, I want to circle back to talking about emotional forgiveness. Emotional forgiveness is incredibly powerful. It allows you to release pain from the past. But how do you get here? It can be hard to forgive someone. Personally, I found the easiest way to forgive other people is to recognize that I make mistakes myself. Like everyone else, I'm not perfect. Shocker, I know. But when I consider my own flaws, it's a lot easier to turn the other cheek and understand that everyone else is doing their best just like me. However, this brings up the concept of self forgiveness. And personally, I have a hard time forgiving myself for some of the things that I've done wrong. I think it's important to set a high standard to yourself, but it's also important to keep a balance and not be too harsh. I can sometimes struggle finding that balance. If you have any thoughts on this, please put them in the comments. I'd love to read them. Now, I want to talk about some Christian philosophies regarding forgiveness. Forgiveness is at the heart of Christianity. To recap Christianity in a very short time period, the idea is that humans are imperfect. They do this thing called sinning, which is basically anything that's not perfect and is not what God intended for us. And because we're all imperfect, we don't deserve to go to heaven, which is a perfect place. We're not worthy of that perfection. But Christianity says that we are given that as a gift because of the death of Jesus Christ, who basically paid for our debt of imperfection by dying like a really terrible death. That's essentially what the Bible is all about. So if you were to accept this viewpoint and position, it would lead you to the conclusion that forgiveness is not something that you earn, it's something that you are granted as a gift. And I think that's a really lovely way to look at it, and especially a lovely way to think about it when it comes to forgiving others. Again, as I mentioned earlier when I talked about emotional forgiveness, sometimes you should forgive someone even if they don't deserve it. I think doing that is one of the most loving things that you can do towards another person. And consequentially, I think that it's something that's really beautiful about the Bible is that it explains how God gives us that gift of forgiveness, even though we don't deserve it. Now I'm going to read a few quotes from the Bible that really speak to me. This one comes from Ephesians 4:32. It says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God has forgiven you." So what this quote means to me is that if God is able to forgive us of all of our sins, then likewise we should be able to, and we should want to forgive everyone else that has sinned against us. The next quote is from Matthew 18:21. It says, "Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?' Jesus answered, 'I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. So 77 is just an arbitrarily large number. And this passage is basically about the fact that there's no limit to our forgiveness. You shouldn't be counting people's failings against them. That's not a kind and loving way to live. But of course, there's a tension here in the fact that if someone is repeatedly hurting you, you want to take note of that, and you of course want to act accordingly. So I think something that this passage conveys is that forgiveness isn't about pretending something never happened. It's about realizing that someone is imperfect and choosing to love them anyway. That's what forgiveness is really all about. It's about love. The next passage is also about love. It comes from Matthew 5. It says, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." And then skipping ahead, it says, "For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same?" And basically, it's using tax collectors as a stand-in for like a bad person, which I find a bit humorous. Anyway, I think this is one of my favorite quotes from the Bible because it's pretty easy to love people that love you, that are nice to you, but it's much more challenging to love people that have actively hurt you. But I think that's what true love, what unconditional love is all about. It's about loving people despite their actions, which is obviously really difficult, but I think it's something that's really beautiful. And if the world had more of that, I think the world would be such a better place. But yeah, that pretty much exhausts my ideas about this topic. And I have a lot of footage left, so I don't really know what to talk about. One thing I'm going to talk about is what this series is going to look like going forwards. So I've decided that I want it to be a lot less edited because I kind of hate editing. I don't find it very fun. And I'm also going to be a little bit less scrutinous with the quality of my voiceovers. Basically, what I'm saying is the production quality is just going to get worse. But I think that will allow me to really have better ideas and have more interesting thoughts. So if that's something that you care about, feel free to stay, feel free to stick around. If that's not something you care about, I totally understand. I'm also probably not going to be talking as much about what I'm doing in the game because I've come to realize that I don't really care about that very much at all. It's not really important, and I don't think it's important to teach people about it. If you really want to learn about Minecraft, you can do that somewhere else. You can just look stuff up, I guess. And if that is something that you particularly want to do, why? Well, it's just a game. Just have fun with it. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm just going to be trying to have as much fun as possible. I'm probably going to be cheating a lot more because I find that pretty fun using all the unique mechanics. I've been getting into game dev, and using cheats and command blocks and stuff has been an absolute blast for me. So I'm going to be showcasing some of the stuff I've made with that, hopefully. My next video is actually going to be all about game development and things that I learned while making my first game, because I learned a lot of things, and a lot of things I wouldn't expect to have learned. And of course, I gotta plug the game that I made. It's free, you can play it in your browser. I'll put a link to that in the description. Please check it out because I spent so many hours working on it, and it's something I'm really proud of. I think it's really fun. So please just give it a try. So as you can see, the iron farm is almost done, which means the video is almost done. So I hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something. And if you didn't, I would love to hear feedback about ways I could improve, ways I could make it more entertaining or informative for you, because I want these videos to actually help people. That's why I'm making them. So yeah, please write me a comment or send me a message if you have my number.